Just the ladies are. Okay.
Okay.
We're good.
Yeah.
So. We're going to drop that.
Good morning. My name's Eric Howard. I'm the Executive Director of the E2 Tech Council, and I'm pleased that you're able to join us today for this hybrid program with Terry Shahada, the Executive Director of the Maine Space Grant Consortium, talking about space science, climate change, and AI. This program is brought to you as part of the Climate Tech Incubator at Northeastern University's RU Institute. And I'm pleased to welcome Tara, who will provide some additional welcome to all of us who are here today. Tara, off to you.
Thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we got you.
Great.
We got you.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Tara Dunham. I'm the Senior Program Manager for the Climate Tech Incubator here at the RU Institute. We are part of Northeastern University, a global campus of over 14 campuses around the world. And here in Portland, we are helping the Maine economy by teaching graduate students in computer science and AI and engineering and data science. And as part of that effort, we also have entrepreneurship programs in order to help build the Maine economy from inside as well, and starting these businesses that can eventually employ our students and make a difference. The Climate Tech Incubator is one of the newest programs at the RU Institute, and it is a membership-based program for startups working on climate tech solutions to come and use the RU's space as a workspace, and also tap into the amazing resources that we have here, our students, faculty, researchers, and networks of mentors, networks of commercial partners, networks of investors, and much, much more. We're actually making a public announcement this next week. We've been kind of operating in stealth mode for the past few months, getting this program built up. Pleased to be working with E2 Tech and Eric to get to do these really interesting speaker series where we hear all sorts of ways that climate tech can be realized. And I'm really excited to join for this session. If anybody has any questions or wants to talk more about the incubator, I know we're virtual today, and I'm very happy to answer any questions and talk further.
Hey Tara, it's Marty. You can take your slide down so you wouldn't be a little panel in the corner, but also, don't you have an event next week?
Yes, we are officially launching the incubator publicly, and then we also are hosting a Start Summit, which is a way for community members to get engaged to learn what it's like to build a startup. So this first program, actually in partnership with Eaton Peabody, thank you again for hosting the speaker series and this speaker series as well. The Start Summit will help community members learn how to ideate and generate a business idea in the realm of climate tech. So this is a beginning program for our engagement with the community around climate tech.
That's great. Thank you so much, Tara.
And hi, Marty.
Sorry about that. Good morning.
So, again, I'm Eric Howard. I'm the Executive Director of the E2 Tech Council, which is Maine's largest community for environmental and energy professionals. We've got hundreds of companies and thousands of people on our regular mailing list. We do several programs every month. Some are professional development for advanced career professionals. Some are oriented toward helping recruit early career folks to jobs in our sector. You may have seen that the governor would like to add 15,000 more clean energy jobs in Maine by the year 2030. And some of those people will be high school and college graduates, but some of them will be people who are changing positions from one sector and coming to work with us. We're pleased to be working with the RU. Our next event in this series is in 2 weeks from now, on 6th September. at Maine Electric Boat in Biddeford. Looking at marine propulsion and electrification for boats. And that's from 4 to 6 in the afternoon. We do these events at different times of the day because people have different schedules. And then after the event at 6, we'll walk up the hill to the Pepperell Mill and have a little reception, beer, burgers, whatever else anybody might want to have at Bandit Brewing there at the Pepperell Mill. It is, next slide, please. E2 Tech, again, we convene these kinds of meetings. We attempt to be a catalyst for growth, working with entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial people within established companies. We do research. Every Monday, we call oil and propane dealers all around the state to get the most current pricing on fossil fuels. And that's a contract that we have with the Federal Energy Information Administration and the Governor's Energy Office. So when you hear on Maine Public Radio, as you did a couple of weeks ago, about the $41 million in home heating fuel assistance from the federal government coming to Maine to help low-income Mainers. Part of that 41 million is to why 41? Well, they looked at the price of oil and gas in the past and said that seems to be the right amount instead of 45 or 35. So that's how we participate in other aspects of the Maine economy. And then lastly, we're a connector. And so I appreciate some people being able to join us here in person while others are joining us virtually. And again, our speaker this morning is Terry. And Terry has been in this space sector for decades. He and I first connected probably around the year 2000. And so it's a pleasure to be having him with us today. And Terry, the floor is yours. Share your slides.
Good, thank you. Right, I would say after several years, it's time to get out of the shadows, right? All right. All right, everybody says. Word of caution for those in Zoom, that can't see you. My voice carries, I'm a soft spoken person. So I don't know if you guys, if you can hear me, please tell someone who's moderating. the Zoom.
Jackie and I will track
Okay,
and
all right, just let me know to.
we
raise
will
my-
prod you.
But I don't think anybody here is gonna have any problem with my voice, at this point. Anyway, thank you very much, for inviting me, to make a presentation, on Maine's involvement in space. And I'll explain that, but in terms of intro, from my perspective, I have been, and let me kind of go for the first slide here, oops.
You got it.
Oh, I got it, okay. If you can read that. I am the executive director of the Space Grant Consortium, which is a nonprofit entity, part of a national network funded by NASA. There is a consortium in all 50 states, plus Puerto Rico and the District of Columbia. I've been executive director since 2000. And what we do is we take NASA funds, they give it to us, and we dole it out in a competitive fashion for small scale research investment in faculty, graduate students, undergraduate. K-12 activities and businesses. These are competitive grants, and the intent is to engage Maine in the space economy. The intent is to get Maine businesses and faculty more engaged in what NASA is doing. We've been doing that since 2000. We've probably invested close to $25–30 million in building Maine's capacity. So you probably heard certain bits and pieces throughout the last 5 years of what's going on at the University of Maine. Blue Shift over the small launch provider who provides funding for them. So there's a lot of activities that we've been doing for the last 20 years. 5 years ago, we decided, board of directors that are listed here on the right, we decided, okay, what is the next evolution for the state of Maine to be involved in the space economy? We know by 2040 or 2035, whatever the date is, the entire space economy on a global perspective will reach $1 trillion. Can Maine have 5% of that? Just 5%. 5% is a big number in terms of contribution to GDP in Maine. But more importantly, we wanted to have a mechanism by which we can retain our students when they graduate from high school and college. I've been in Maine since '68, and all I've heard every year is the brain drain. Well, we're not unique. There are other states that have the brain drain, but I think we're more unique, and we really need to do something about it. So the key is, how do we keep our students here in Maine? How do we get them involved in the economy that can contribute to the other legacy industries that we have, like marine, forestry, agriculture, aquaculture, and so on and so forth. Space is not about sending someone to the moon. Space is not about sending, like SpaceX, folks over to the Van Allen belt. Oh, by the way, tidbits. You're familiar with the Van Allen belt from your physics at high school? The radiation belt around the Earth. It's named after Van Allen from Indiana University. Do you know Peter Van Allen here in Maine?
For Maine biz, yeah.
The Maine biz, that's his father. Okay, his father is, I can't remember his first name. It's Van Allen who discovered the Van Allen belt. There's a lot of history about Maine and how a small world it is. Anyway, so what we decided to do is to put a plan in place. We got public and private sector involved. We developed a strategic plan, was submitted to the legislature and to the governor, a bill to create a quasi-independent entity called the Maine Space Corporation. All right. Okay. Real quickly. It's a quasi-independent entity, signed into law April 2022. The board of directors, however, was not confirmed until the following legislative session for a variety of reasons, nothing to do with the corporation. It has a board of directors, 17, which I'll show you. And its purpose is to manage 3 business units: space data analytics, an innovation hub for research and development related to state-of-the-art space technology, both in space as well as in Maine, health in Maine, and launch sites and services, both for vertical as well as horizontal, as well as sea-based. Those are the 3 business units that the corporation manages in order to engage Maine in the space economy. These are all shared resources. They're not intended to build upon to compete with the RU or University of Maine or USM or whatever. The intent is to see what is available out there, bring them through a collaborative effort, and develop those resources that otherwise would not exist, that could be used by the private and the public sector of Maine. Bear in mind, corporation is a quasi-state entity. It is not a for-profit corporation. Although you might think of that based on the name. But that's a corporation. It was established in 22, board of directors confirmed in 27, June 27 of last year. So in less than a year, it's done a lot of stuff that I'll talk about. I serve as the interim executive director of the corporation. So I'm wearing 2 hats. Nonprofit corporation, Space Grant Consortium, but my passion now is really, I'm kind of transitioning towards a corporation. And hopefully in June or July of next year, it'll be a full-time position. Here are the board of directors. Can you read this? Okay, we have, it's hard to read. For those that, okay.
Probably share the slides afterwards, I'm guessing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So 17 members, 6 ex officio, and that includes Dr. Ali Abedi from the University of Maine representing the system. Jonathan Judkins, the president CEO of the Loring Development Authority. Christine Logan, executive director and the vice chair representing the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority, Janet Sorter from the Chief Academic Officer at Community College System, Ben Sturdivant representing the Department of Economic and Community Development, and Brian Whitney from MTI. And then you have 11 confirmable members. These individuals represent certain counties in the state. Okay, that's the way the legislature wanted it. First, we had put in, we just want 5 people representing the state throughout. But when you have so many members on the committee, they say, what about my county? And it has 60 counties, and we didn't want to enlarge the board of directors, so only 25, members. So it was settled that it would be, that they will use the regional approaches to the Department of Transportation. Based on the 5 regions in the state. So I kind of folded that in. But anyway, these individuals that you see here actually represent the counties across the state, and they have certain staggered terms. Okay. Here's a space complex. Geographically distributed. Because we know we have assets in limestone. We know we have assets here in southern Maine. We know we have assets at the University of Maine. And what we're trying to do is to connect those dots in a collaborative way so we can maximize economic development across the state, in particular in Washington County, as well as Aroostook County. So when we talk about the Data Analytics Center, what does that really mean? Think of all the data that come. When you do remote sensing, when you're looking for precision agriculture and forestry and all of that, you're relying on data that either a satellite collects or drones collect. You need to analyze that data in a manner that is can be used by individuals from a policy perspective or planning perspective, even at the local level, which can understand and disseminate and make decisions around that. More and more, it's becoming more difficult to conduct those analysis because of the sophistication of the instrumentation, but also the sophistication, the kind of data that's needed, the resolution that's needed, and so on and so forth. And that requires better equipment, but more importantly, requires expertise, knowledge in advanced computing and in artificial intelligence. This is something that the RU is very good at, also the University of Maine, but particularly RU. So the collaborative effort here is to engage RU and the University of Maine and others in the business community in developing the center that everybody could use and serve the purpose of the communities at large across the state. We've gotten funding, and we're going to break ground on a data visualization center sometime next year. That then, once conducted, will have all the state-of-the-art technology that people can utilize across the state for visualizing data that they need at the resolution that they need from the satellites that are orbiting the Earth. The second business unit is the R&D fund, Innovation Hub. Again, that's really what we're looking for is an opportunity for students and faculty and entrepreneurs that really want to get into the development of space technology, whether it's in space or using space to help us here on Earth. They need a place to do the work. They need access to expertise. They need access to equipment that otherwise would not be available. That's where the R&D Innovation Hub comes in. Again, a collaborative effort with the major institutions in Maine, but it includes BAE Systems from New Hampshire. It includes Photon Technologies that is going to relocate here, part of its operation in terms of landing, and some of the small businesses. And the idea is to really get together and figure out how to develop, push the state of the art of the technologies that serve national and international needs, but also statewide needs, but create opportunities for our students to really become engaged and develop new technologies, become entrepreneurs, leverage what's going on at RU, at the University of Maine system, at the community college system, but we want those technologies built here in the state. And that's why companies like Teledyne are developing a presence here, footprint in the state, because they want to access what's going on here. The third business unit is launch sites and services. That's vertical launches, like Blue Ship. We're not looking at SpaceX size rockets. We're looking at small rockets like Electron, like Blue Ship. Vertical launches, someplace off Washington County. If that doesn't work, option B is horizontal from an airplane, from that takes off from Loring and or from Brunswick. As well as another option for sea-based launches, using large platforms, rigs that will float out into the Gulf of Maine, and we can launch those rockets from there. Again, the purpose of the corporation is to establish a foothold on those properties, build the foundation for launch sites, and then companies that want to launch their rockets will then utilize those facilities at a cost to them. Corporation will just be the operator of the launch facility, but the companies that want to launch will utilize them. This is a three-legged stool that makes up the complex. It's different than what's going on across the country, in which most spaceports in the country, whether it's in Georgia or in Alaska or Vandenberg, even Michigan, and the closest competitor we have is Halifax. Most of them are dealing with spaceports, and you just can't sustain from a revenue financial perspective a spaceport. So you have to have a three-legged stool where they're working together as part of pieces of the puzzle. We would be satisfied with the work of the Data Analytics Center and the Innovation Hub, even if we did not get a launch site established in the state because of community pushback. But we're fine with that, but that's something that we're working on. From an environmental perspective, whatever we do across all three business units have to comply with the environmental regulations. When we cite a location for launch sites and services, we have to do extensive EPA environmental assessment on the site. We have to get FAA approval for the launch site, as well as we're doing risk assessments and all of that stuff. Maine does not have that expertise. We need to make sure that as we get into the space economy a little bit more deeper, that we develop, not we, the corporation, but the state develops the expertise in doing the environmental assessment that we normally do for sites across the country. But we need to tailor those a little bit more towards the space industry a little bit more. So environmental assessments, FAA approval, and all of that stuff will really become really key. And they're often the barriers to success of the small entrepreneurs that come to Maine or want to establish a foothold in Maine as it relates to the space economy. Let me it's getting stuck here. There we go. Yeah. Oh, it's going the other way. Okay, it'll give you a perspective because I've kind of put everything together in one speech. Real quick, just in terms of historical context and where we're going. This, if you're my age, you'll remember Sputnik. That's the first small satellite that was launched. And see how small it is. We went then to these humongous weather satellites. This is recently, earlier this year, that was launched. What we're talking about is these satellites. CubeSat, femtosatellite, even smaller than that. By putting those in series, 3 or 4 units of satellites, CubeSats in particular. 3 or 4 units of a CubeSat can do the same amount of work as a large satellite. And you can build it. That's what's the beauty of this, is that the cost over the last 20 years, because of federal government, national government getting out of the way of the private and the public, private sector and moving space technology forward, them getting out of the way and the cost of manufacturing and the cost of the electronics to build these satellites have just gone really way down. So now even high school students, elementary students, small businesses, university faculty, they can manufacture those within 6 months. I don't know if you saw the news about a month ago, Ali Abedi from the University of Maine worked with 3 high schools to launch Maine's first satellite. Okay, that was a milestone for the state, that we're able, Maine has a satellite and it's doing, it has artificial intelligence and it's doing climate change analysis, doing remote sensing in the ocean and precision manufacturing, precision agriculture, things of that nature. It's collecting that data, same kind of data that these large satellites are doing. So we can do that in Maine. The other thing is, in terms of the size of the rockets, we're not doing these. We're focusing on this area here. Okay, this is oops, it's not even here. Blue Shift is over here. The recent engine test over in Blue Shift in Brunswick Landing a couple of days ago is about getting their, I think it was the Red Dwarf ready for low Earth orbit. But this is the size that we're looking at. We're focusing on sun synchronous orbit, low Earth orbit, which is basically the same altitude as the International Space Station. That's where most of the remote sensing work is done. We are leveraging the runways at Loring as well as in mid-coast. We have an ideal geographic location for polar orbits. That's where most of the work is done. That's where the market trend is going. Vertical launch opportunities along the coast. We have physical assets, as I mentioned, small but growing supply chain in the industry. Many of them work with the aerospace and defense industry, and there's an easy transition with some training for them to also expand their product line into working directly with the space industry. We have 2 launch providers in Maine, Blue Shift and Vault in Limestone, and 2 more are coming into the state in the next year. So we'll have a total of 4 in the next year in Maine.
Was it again, Terry? Blue Shift, Vault, and who else?
And we're getting two more
Okay.
that are, and I can't name them, but 2 more that are coming to Maine to establish a footprint and participate in what we're doing.
But it's working, obviously, then this
Oh, yeah.
development.
Yeah, Blue Shift has like about a dozen employees in Brunswick,
Yes.
and I saw on their website they're looking for 2 more.
Yeah.
People that.
And then we have a very strong education infrastructure in the state, K-12 as well as the higher education, but not only in the state, because we're counting what's happening in New Hampshire and the greater Boston area and New England in order to help achieve what we're trying to achieve. But we can't do it alone. We know we need to do this on a regional level. Okay. So our vision is simply not about launching rockets, but it's about engaging Mainers in the fundamental infrastructure to develop those rockets. If you think about what systems need to go into place, what skill sets you need to have to manufacture those satellites, to manufacture the rockets, to launch those rockets, and so on and so forth. That opens up a real opportunity for a large swath of Maine's workers as well as high school students to become engaged in the space economy, developing a career pathway of interest in the space industry without even having much to do with launching a rocket. because our focus would be very limited if we just focused on rockets. If you look at, go back, if you can, in the early sixties, and I'm aging myself, when President Kennedy challenged the country, and I'm being serious here, this is an example, when President Kennedy challenged the country that we're gonna send man and woman to the moon and bring them back safely. He was preparing the country for a large investment in research and development and STEM education. Yes, it was about the Russians, but when you think about the Industrial Revolution that occurred in the early sixties, that led to the Apollo landing, the Apollo landing on the moon. It led to all the R&D and commercialization that we are experiencing today. The benefits of that investment is we're feeling it now, and it's contributing to others. The majority of the folks that are benefiting in manufacturing those technologies do not work on the moon rocket. They work on other technologies, and this is the same logic and approach that we're trying to achieve here in the state. All right, so we want them to be involved in the value chain. And they develop the application tailored to a variety of industries. These are not the complete because I don't have marine forestry in there. They can be involved in space commerce, space technologies. Let me go back. They can develop applications in air and maritime, agriculture monitoring, forest monitoring, you name it. How can we use space technology to address what's going on here in the state? By developing satellites or developing expertise in artificial intelligence, whatever it might be. Our vision is that we would develop swarms of satellites that are targeted to very specific needs in the state. Swarms of satellites that are targeted to K through 12, dedicated 24/7 to our students in K through 12. Satellites that are dedicated to planners in communities when they do a lot of community planning. If they need access to remote sensing data that they normally can't have access to at a lower cost, we can do, this can't happen. Businesses that need access for whatever reason to remote sensing data or any data that is available that can be developed and launched as a part of satellite. We're looking to put Maine on the map in its ability and capacity to generate the kinds of satellites it really needs to do its business. That's not out of the realm of possibility. It can be done. Our infrastructure is a little bit small. We have a small supply chain. As I mentioned, much of it is involved in aerospace and defense. But the transfer of the skill sets between those two industries is quite close. So we can see the small businesses that are focused primarily on defense can expand their product line and become involved in the space industry. They will need some additional training and equipment to do that. That will be part of the process. This kind of gives you an idea what the innovation ecosystem in Maine looks like. We have a pretty good one. It needs to be coordinated a little bit better with a focus on space industry. But we do a great job in agriculture and marine and so on and so forth. And some of the legacy industries that we have, we need just a little bit shift towards the space industry. All the resources are out there. It's just a knowledge set that needs to be used to tilt it towards, not tilt it, but to expand it towards the space industry. Career opportunities. And I use this slide a lot with our kids when because I want to know what's in it for them. So what we're talking about by creating the business, the opportunities for businesses to expand in the state, but also for those to come from outside to establish a presence in Maine. These are the kinds of occupations that we're hearing from them that they need to establish, that they would like to establish. Those are the skill sets that they're looking for, but we don't have those yet. So it's a conundrum, it's a chicken or the egg situation. They want to come in, they want to create these job opportunities. We don't have the students to fill those. It takes a little bit longer. But it shows you the expanse of the occupations that would be available to Maine students to become involved in the industry. And they don't have to be about STEM. It could be media and communications as well. Let me, I know I've taken a lot of your time. Oops. Let me. Okay. Let me close with two slides. It's a lot to digest. We're going to continue our business recruitment. As I mentioned, we're looking towards having the 2 launch providers establish a presence here in Maine by next year. So that will make a total of 4, where we started with 2. Now it's going to be doubling within 24 months. We have Teledyne that has an office at Brunswick Landing. Teledyne, if you don't know Teledyne, their expertise is in sensors and imaging. A lot of their imagers, all the pictures that you see from the James Webb Telescope comes from their imagers that is on the satellite. But more importantly, down to Earth. When you go to the supermarket and you cash out, you scan your product, scanners are Teledyne. Teledyne has 90% of the global market in scanners in supermarkets. They see an opportunity for them to use that technology and embed it in smaller satellites. That's why they're here. They're more used to large satellites, but they see the market trend going to the small satellites. They want to miniaturize those scanners, those imagers. So we're collaborating with them in developing an upscreening facility for qualifying products for space application. We have the funding. We're working on renovating a couple of spaces at the Brunswick Landing, purchasing the necessary equipment, and then reaching out to the small business community in the States of who wants to participate. We know we have about 50 companies small throughout the state that want to participate. They want to expand into the space industry. So this is like a training grounds for them. Teledyne is going to provide about 5 cameras, sensors. These businesses are going to be working with them to go through a qualification list. What does it take for this camera and sensor to be put on a CubeSat that's going to be subjected to the harsh space environment? What do I need to do to it? What kind of, then develop a prototype and do the testing evaluation. Then whatever comes out of that process is going to be ready for space application. That sets up the groundwork for us to do space qualification for products, for any product that Maine industry and entrepreneurs are very interested in. It will have a facility, as I said, in Brunswick Landing, but there are other equipment that are available at RU, they're available at USM, at the University of Maine. To the extent those equipment are needed, then there will be this connection that we're going to be making with them to access that. I mentioned the data visualization center by next year. By the end of December, we will have a workforce development roadmap that defines what do we need to do at the community college system, at the K through 12, at the University of Maine system, continuing education, CTEs. What do we need to do? What courses that we need to make sure that in the next 10 years, we set up a process and a pipeline to generate the workforce that we need. We have to do this at the same time that we're building our capacity here in the state. Lastly, we're working with our partners in New Hampshire, leveraging the University of New Hampshire BAE Systems, a partner in Global Space Systems, and the universities and businesses around the greater Boston area to develop a regional effort whereby Maine will be at the center of developing the expertise and the manufacturing know-how that again includes artificial intelligence and machine learning to reduce the manufacturing development, to reduce the development cycle of small satellites from an average of 24 to 48 months down to less than 10 months. That's gonna push the envelope in innovation. And we Maine wants to be in the leading front end of that when that happens. So by having that regional effort, then we can build our capacity here in the state to open up the door for our businesses as well as our students. Lastly, operationally, and as mentioned on the interim executive director. Operationally, when the corporation was established by legislation, we did not request, the sponsor, Senator Manny Daugherty, did not request fiscal note. Because she was cognizant, still is, that the majority of the legislatures that she encounters are so familiar with marine, with agriculture, with forestry. You mentioned space that kind of glaze over you. Why Maine in space? So she knew that in order to get the legislation through as soon as possible, not attaching a fiscal note was the best strategy. Otherwise, it will not survive when it goes to the appropriation. We knew that there are federal funds out there and state funds that the corporation could leverage, and we're doing that right now, to basically start the ball rolling. Mind you, all of that, what I talked about, and all the interest that's occurred as a result of establishing the corporation in the space complex, started in earnest June 27th of last year. And it's just been over a year, and this organization has accomplished a lot without any state funding. I'm not saying we're not going to go after state funding. We are for operational purposes. Okay. When it comes to investments in bricks and mortars, in facilities, in equipment, the corporation has bonding authority in its legislation. So we're not going to go to the governor and the legislature and say, hey, include us in your R&D bond. No, we have control over that. Because we know that in order to achieve the 3 business units in the next 10 years, we probably need to raise about $150 million. And a lot of that is going to come from bonds, but a lot of that too will come a good portion from the partners that sit around the table and want to co-invest in the space economy. And hopefully that will be businesses around this table, as well as RU, university, whatever. But the RU will take the leadership pathway of using its bonding authority to put on the table the majority of the funds. But we need the partners to make this, because this is not about the corporation. And then finally, nope. Okay, I'll close with this. Actually, there's one other side. I'll close with this. This is the second annual space conference. 23rd, 25th of October. Holiday Inn. Last year was the inaugural. I think I was mentioning earlier before we started. We, given space is not in people's language yet. Last year, we probably estimated about 150 conference. And this is post-COVID. We were concerned in July, we only had about, I think it's September about. The conference was in early first week of November, but in early September, we probably had about 95 registered. And we were estimating about 150, but we were told by folks that post-COVID, as people start registering within 30 days, it's just the experience. So we were kind of, and we went from 150 to 300 in less than 30 days. We estimate the same number this time, okay? The theme is partnerships, I think, someplace around here. Yeah, it's around partnerships and collaboration. Great speakers, go to the website and mainspace2030.org, one word. That'll give you an outline of basically the conference and who's involved in the space economy. If you're interested in knowing a little bit more about the corporation, the website for the corporation is CorpCorp.org. But I hope you attend this conference. And we need sponsors and exhibitors. So if anybody has access to financial resources, either in Zoom or around this table that would be interested in being a sponsor of the conference, please let me know. The title sponsor is taken, it's by Spirit Air Systems, which owns Fiber Materials. But we have platinum sponsors, we have gold sponsors, we have sponsors for breakfast, for lunch, whatever. We have a pitch competition. If you want to sponsor one of the competitions, just let me know. But we do need sponsors.
Thank you very much, Terry.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the beginning of the introduction, I neglected to mention why this is a particularly auspicious day for this program. An hour ago, the first commercial spacewalk concluded. The 4 people did not die on the SpaceX mission this morning when they climbed out of their rocket at, what is it, 850 miles above us, spinning around the Earth once every 90 minutes. So it's a great day. So thank you very much. Can you add another perhaps comment in terms of how some of this data is going to be beneficial in terms of climate change, climate impact, energy applications?
In order to, there are several.
And then this is a question from one of the people online, who's online.
One of the key factors and I don't want to profess that I know a lot about climate change. In terms of the science, when you peel the layers of the onion and you're looking at the actual data. But I do know that that there is an ongoing concern about the granularity and the resolution related to the data that you're getting around climate change, whether it's in terms of agriculture, marine, along the coast, the kind of vegetation, and so on and so forth. The emphasis, for example, on the vegetation along the coast that capture carbon dioxide and contribute to reducing climate change. The state has that as a priority to do an inventory around those vegetation, but that requires some resources. It does require certain kinds of resolutions that currently do not exist or exist but are very costly. And they may exist, but the timing in terms of getting that information is not up to what people are looking for. But also to get kind of a sense of in terms of time as well is you're trying to find out how sequentially the data, the environment interacts from month to month, year to year. The mechanism, the infrastructure to do that is not readily available because you're relying on someone else's technology. You're relying on NASA satellites. You may rely on SpaceX satellites for some areas or whatever, but your destiny, what you need to do is that you're relying on somebody else. What we're trying to do is turn the page around that and have control over our destiny, control over the kinds of data that we need. If it's a satellite that's needed in order to have ongoing measurements of coastal environment, temperature, phytoplankton, whatever it might be, we need to have that in a certain time frame, same time every year, so we can make a distinction what's going on or whatever. We need higher resolution with data for whatever reason, for whatever industry we're talking about. The only way that can be done so that we can be proactive as a state is by having our own technology, having our own resources and satellites. It could be satellite, it could be another way of doing drones or whatever it is. So that's how this effort would help. Okay, you could foresee, for example, folks from the Climate Change Council, from members of the Eats to Tech community and businesses and whatever, saying we need X, Y, and Z in terms of data, but we can't have access to that. You sit around the table and you have a conversation with the experts at the universities and the manufacturing at the space complex and say, can you develop the satellite that has the following parameters, components to it? And if the answer is yes, the satellite will be developed. And it would be dedicated to the state of Maine for use. Understanding that it goes around every 90 minutes. It's not only over the state of Maine, but it's gonna be in other places that also need the same kind of information. Why can't we then leverage that and have them pay for the infrastructure to support what we need to do? So that's kind of a revenue generation. Looking at it from a global market perspective. But the point is this, is that we don't have a way of people sitting around and saying, I need this satellite data. I can't get it, it's too expensive, it's not the right resolution. It's not where I need the satellites to be and so on and so forth. Why can't we have the capacity to do that? That's what this is all about. And I'm using satellite as just one example, but it could be any series of subsystem technologies that may not have anything to do with developing and launching a satellite, but using that technology to help what we need to do here in Maine. Hope that answers it. No.
Other questions from the room?
I got a couple. My name is Michael. How many launch sites are you guys looking to establish, and or do you have any right now?
Well, in terms of vertical land base, we're looking at one major one. Multi-use, meaning it will be large enough, configured so that it could be used by several launch providers.
You said one of the, okay.
And then, we're still looking at the horizontal as well as sea-based as an option B.
Okay, so a few, depending on
Yeah,
your
yeah.
position. You said that one of the main barriers of entry was trying to get a lot of the environments and compliance and stuff.
Yeah.
Sort of, how is the organization going about ensuring that, like, are they approaching local entities, like law firms?
For the environmental.
Yeah,
assessment.
like,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
permitting and all of that stuff.
Well,
and
we
regulatory stuff.
have, there. In terms of process. There are two, there's a general environmental assessment that needs to be made on, if we select a site, we work with a community and select a site. For FAA regulation, EPA regulation, we need to do the environmental assessment. We're not gonna do it, obviously, but.
Yeah, I think that was my
We
question.
would, yeah, we would have the funds. And we would issue an RFP to the community. And hopefully it'll be Maine, the companies that respond to that, and we go through a competitive review, and say, okay. You're the next thing it's gonna be environmental assessment, of course.
That makes sense. Yeah, I meant like, and you answered it, like, does the organization have resources internally to do that assessment?
John?
I imagine that this is a global market, and that not just Maine, but across the United States, Europe, everybody wants to put satellites in the air. Is there a concern about overpopulating that resource? And, you know, is there a limit to that?
Yes.
And who's watching over that as a global
Yeah.
management strategy?
There was if I may, you know, I had a slide here, let me see if I can find it, real quick. Huh? No, because it goes to the heart of what you're talking about. I know it's trying to figure out how the best way to include that. Bear with me. Won't take too much of your time.
while Terry's looking for his slide, I will add some closing comments. One of which is that the E2 Tech educational programs are partially sponsored by and supported by a number of entities here in Maine, one being Eaton Peabody, who's our host today for the in-person gathering. Also the Maine Technology Institute. We have a long-term collaboration also with Maine Biz, which is an important news source for what's going on in Maine's entrepreneurial economy. And then we also work together with an organization whose acronym is NEEP. And BEEP and the E2 Tech Council have been working for several years on providing interns for businesses in the state, funded in part by the governor's energy office, who's also, GEO is also an important partner for us. So I do want to thank all of our corporate sponsors and our members. Terry mentioned Blue Shift in Brunswick. Blue Shift has been an E2 Tech member as well.
Environmental stewardship is really important to the corporation because we don't want to contribute to the mess, to the debris. So I got real quickly, I just want to show you something. This has, if you can, this is a timeline from 1957. No, just look at the number of dots. That's low Earth orbit. That's where a lot of the satellites, when we do remote sensing and whatnot, that's where they're launched. But then you have geosynchronous, the larger satellites for Earth, for weather, those are kind of around here. But you see the contribution of low Earth orbit launching. It's a problem. The other problem is our friend Elon Musk. With Starlink, I own Starlink, by the way. I have one but if you see the trailing, he launches 60 at a time. This is a reflection from the satellites as they're aligning around low Earth orbit. It's creating a problem for astronomers, for people that are looking, doing their own research. So we have a problem with reflection. We have a problem with the mess. In the past, there has been limited enforcement, both at the international level as well as a federal level, of minimizing debris. Historically, satellites were supposed to have up to a 25-year limit lifetime. Historically, organizations, companies launch those, whether it's NASA or Boeing or whatever, they were supposed to figure out what to do in terms of decommissioning those satellites. So they're going here. It was less of a problem because they were outside the geosynchronous, those large satellites, they were way outside of the orbit of concern. But throughout the years, we've become more acclimated to launching in low Earth orbit, to the point where the International Space Station has to constantly monitor debris that's coming in. Okay, and I'm not talking about debris, chunks of satellites. A speck of paint that comes off a satellite, knowing how fast it goes, can puncture a hole in the International Space Station. Just a speck of paint. That's a result of the contribution. So anyway, the FAA has now become more developed a more enforceable regulation for any new satellites that are launched. 5 years. You got to bring it down after 5 years. Some are 20 years, 25, but you have to demonstrate that you're going to bring it down. Okay. What's happening on the existing satellites that are decommissioned, but they're still orbiting, that is an opportunity for an entrepreneur to develop a technology, to launch it. And they're doing it right now. There are entrepreneurs that are developing a concept of launching satellites that will throw a large net around a certain area in low Earth orbit, gather those satellites. And then burn it as it comes back to Earth, to the atmosphere. It takes a marine concept, fisheries, and applying it to space, why not do that? But that's real, that's happening. Are there any other ways that we could stimulate our young population and entrepreneurs in developing new technologies that will address that? But it's gonna take some time. The question that many of us are having is to what extent this new enforcement with the FAA, as well as the international community that are coming down hard now on new satellite launches to minimize the environmental stress around low Earth orbit, is to what extent that they're going to enforce this on Starlink.
I know you're looking at a startup, Rory. Are you getting into that side of things at all?
Not catching.
Catching satellites?
No, I do have a couple questions for you though. So I'm working with a startup that's using satellite data for application for precision agriculture and also potentially forestry. What's the best way to like interact or participate in the space data visualization portion of the corporation?
Send me an email. Okay. Send it to Terry Shahan. Terry, the Y, dot SHEHATA. At Maine Space Corp, CORP.org. And I'll follow up.
Then one other question, so the founders and I'm an MIT PhD that's like, he does a lot of like work with radio waves, so he's developed a sensor that he's interested in getting on satellite, like into the future to sort of address some of the data gaps that we've seen.
Sure.
And so you mentioned with this upscreening facility, like how might we, like, how would someone get involved with that?
Mention that in the email and I'll put you on the list of individuals companies that want to participate. Okay, I'll get you in, and that's not gonna be a problem. Okay?
Thanks.
Can I put some on a satellite too?
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Peabody
Thank you
could
very
be-
much.
Peabody could be a sponsor of a satellite.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah, we have our own satellite.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, just a plaque on the satellite, Peabody.
Okay, I think we can turn off the recording. Thank everybody for joining us today. And